cultural Philistine, a term for somebody completely hostile to culture. On December 14, 2012, early in the morning, 20-year-old Adam Lanza would shoot his mother 4 times in the head with a .22 rifle as she slept. He would then equip himself with a Bushmaster XM15 rifle, a Glock pistol, a Sig Sauer pistol, as well as a shooting vest with 10 30-round magazines. He would then drive to Sandy Hook Elementary School and kill 26 people. 20 were children, between the ages of 6 and 7 years old. 6 were staff members. This would remain one of America's deadliest school shootings. In the years following, the only evidence of his existence would be scattered posts across different forums and school pictures of him. He would destroy the hard drive of his computer before the shooting, so investigators couldn't see the contents of it. His motive for the shooting would remain unknown until 9 years later, on the 13th of September 2021, Reddit user WhiteBlaster87 would post to the subreddit r/masskillers. The post was entitled Adam Lanza's YouTube channel. It read as follows: "This channel I came across while talking with some of my buddies from a true crime Discord. I think just upon a cursory glance, one can assume that it's Adam. His voice sounds identical to the Anarchy radio call, and all of the topics of the videos concern things Adam had written about online in the past. He speaks about these things and expounds on dreams he's had and opinions about his own life and suicide. I am extremely surprised no one has come across this before. Each video only mostly has comments from 9 years ago, and I haven't read about this in any investigation of Sandy Hook. If it's true that I'm one of the first to come across this, we should try to keep it relatively low-key, or at least make a backup. I'm sure the account would be quickly removed if discovered by someone else." The reference in this post to the Anarchy radio call refers to when Adam made a call to the radio show Anarchy Radio. This was, at the time, the only confirmed recording of Adam's voice. When the Redditors in the thread took a look at the channel for themselves, it was obvious to everyone it belonged to Adam. The entire subreddit was in shock for the next week, analyzing every video posted to the channel. 9 years after the attack, the motivation behind it had finally become obvious to everyone. Adam, having been isolated in his room for years, had developed many delusional and twisted beliefs. He believed the only way to save children was to kill them. I actually knew the person that discovered Adam's YouTube channel. I was friends with him. When I asked him how he found Adam's channel, this is what he told me. Adam was an active user of this forum called Shock Beyond Belief. It was originally a fan forum for a game called Super Columbine Massacre RPG, but over time, it transformed into a forum discussing all mass killers, with occasional off-topic discussion as well. And under a thread of a user asking other users about their favorite movies, Adam, under his username Smiggles, would reply with a list of his top 25 favorite movies. My friend was in a Discord call with his friends, and after seeing that post, they decided they were going to do research on all the movies. When he got to the second to last one on the list, Beyond Dream's Door, he searched for it on YouTube. He watched a review of it for a few minutes before he saw something strange in his video recommendations. A video created by an account named Cultural Philistine. There was no thumbnail, just blackness, with a strange title, Strange Dream Number 1. Beyond Dream's Door is where horror lies. After listening to the quiet, strange voice for only a few seconds, he knew it was Adam. The voice was clearly the same voice from the Anarchy radio call. He went to the channel page and saw various videos in defense of pedophilia and antinatalism, 2 topics Adam had an intense interest in. In the aftermath of this discovery, the YouTube channel was taken down by YouTube after less than a day. However, Reddit users were able to archive every video Adam had made, over 5 hours worth of content. Soon after, a transcript was painstakingly created, which was a great help to this video. These videos serve as a look into his mind, belief system, and how it's finally possible to know the motivations of someone who committed one of the worst modern atrocities. I'm going to summarize and analyze all of them, alongside providing additional context and info about Adam's life. This video does not exist to defend Adam. It serves as a genuine attempt to try and understand his motives and how he could do something so horrible. Interspersed with me talking about the videos will be clips from them. And I'm going to admit, this video was really hard to make. Adam is nonsensical, quiet, and rambles a lot. It's sometimes really hard to even understand what he's saying. This video is going to be my interpretation of his videos. If you watch them, you may have your own. His first video was uploaded September 7, 2011, 464 days before his massacre and death, entitled My Antinatalism. Antinatalism is a philosophical belief wherein it is morally wrong to bring beings into existence, being totally against people having children. It states that life is suffering, and therefore, the morally correct thing to do is to prevent anything from living. But this is, of course, an overly simplified version for the purposes of this video. There are many varying levels of extremism when it comes to antinatalism. Like all belief systems, it's not a hive mind. The video is short, only a few minutes long. He's obviously reading from a script, and his voice is a whisper, and he's speaking fast. I'll play it for you now.
I didn't understand this when I was younger, but I've always had an immense hatred for culture. I considered culture to be delusional values which humans mindlessly coerce onto each other, spreading it no differently than any other disease. I previously sought to eliminate my cultural values to the greatest extent that I could. Through this I expected to gradually discover values of an inner self which could be reconciled with the society, so that I could engage in activities and pursue goals which would lead to happiness. Eventually I got to a point where I had sufficiently freed myself from what I called cultural values. When I analyzed all of the things which brought me happiness and all of the goals which I wanted to pursue, I realized that absolutely everything about those things that appealed to me was entirely a consequence of my cultural infection. Formerly, I had rejected some aspects of culture while accepting other ones and merely not calling them cultural, as if those values were somehow transcendent and mine. It was at that point that I realized that there is no such thing as an inner self. Any sense of self is a delusional cultural construct. I realized that cultural infections were the sole source of any possible value beyond base values. For a while I believed that happiness could be attained if culture could theoretically be eradicated and anarcho-primitivism were to take hold. Replace all instances of technology with culture in the analytic sections of industrial society in its future, and you basically have a mentality at the time regarding the pernicious effects of culture. The problem was I had not been addressing what happiness is. Happiness is merely the fulfillment of value. I recognized that if cultural values were eliminated, the happiness which results from their fulfillment would not be needed, because happiness becomes an unnecessary and incoherent concept when it is removed from its context. A common theme in my quasi-anarcho-primitivist thought at the time was that non-base values exist only as a consequence of cultural inflections and impede on the happiness which results from the fulfillment of feral values. I treated my feral self as if it were metaphysically the real me, whose soul had been devoured by the culturally constructed impostor of the self. But my feral self was also an impostor. Just as I realized that I could eliminate non-base values and have no need for the happiness which resulted from their fulfillment, I could eliminate base values and have no need for the happiness which resulted from their fulfillment. It was not only the disease of culture that had been plaguing me all along, it was the disease of life itself. I was not, and I am not, in some existential crisis. I have never had the slightest problem with the obvious non-existence of free will, objective purposes, and all of that. I have always been entirely psychologically capable of accepting my own subjective values and goals, even though I know they are consummately inconsequential, and it doesn't bother me at all. The problem is not that I seek meaning and cannot find it. The problem is that I do feel immense meaning, and so does everyone else who is alive. Meaning is an abstract interpretation of value, which exists only because of life. Just as I sought to eradicate the delusional values which culture infected me with, the final solution is the termination of my life to rid myself of all value. A solution cannot be to embrace some aspect of life, as if the erosion of delusions is the cause of this. Life is what originally caused me to have value, and changing my life will never do anything but create different delusions than the ones I already have. Unfortunately, as of right now, I lack the discipline to pursue my death and to rid myself of the values which delude me, even though I recognize that the solution to life is death. But I do commend others who do commit suicide. They have freed themselves from culture, life, and all value. They have freed themselves from themselves.
As you can tell, the way he speaks here is pretty confusing. At times, his logic is difficult to follow. I'm going to provide a brief explanation of what he's saying for those who didn't quite understand. Adam hates culture and cultural values. Think of cultural values as things like morality, rules, and laws. He initially believed that if he eliminated cultural values from his life, then he would finally be able to find out who his true self is. He would then be able to experience genuine happiness, free from the delusions culture had infected him with. However, after Adam thought he had rid himself of all cultural values, he realized that everything that brought him happiness and every goal he wished to pursue only mattered to him because of cultural values. For an example, Adam had a great interest in computers and programming, but it's only because of culture he had an interest in these things. He realized that he didn't actually rid himself of cultural values. He merely just cherry-picked which ones he thought were okay. After this realization, he came to the conclusion that he has no inner self. If those things that brought him happiness were from cultural values, and cultural values are inherently delusional, then happiness is irrelevant and stems from delusion. Since culture is an inevitability in life, the only way to escape it would then be to have no life. Death. Adam isn't somebody who searched for meaning in life and couldn't find it. He feels meaning, and he thinks that's a problem, because meaning only exists as a product of life and culture. Being able to feel meaning and value is proof to him that he's infected. In case you're still confused, and honestly, I wouldn't blame you, here's an even more simplified summary of this video. Adam thinks culture is delusional. He realizes that it's impossible to live free from culture, meaning that life itself is delusional. You can only escape life with death. The next video is entitled Rambling Vlog Rant of a Ruminative Vagrant, uploaded the 8th of September 2011. He begins the video by saying it's not going to be scripted, and it might be rambly since he hasn't slept. He starts by ranting about the organization It Gets Better, which is a non-profit anti-bullying organization that peaked in 2010 and 2011. It was created in response to the suicides of multiple teenagers who were bullied for being gay. Adam is against the group because he believes that the group is only against bullying because it interferes with their ability to coerce children into their cultural values. If a child is being bullied, they likely won't want to participate in society and the culture. Adam believes the real bullying comes from adults trying to push their values onto children. He recounts how in school, he would go in front of the students and pretend as if some emergency was happening. He would flail his arms and point at nothing. Think of what Courage the dog would do. He'd do this at the end of the day, every day. And one time, the principal was nearby, but he didn't care and was still going to do it. So he said to one of his classmates, "Oh, the principal is here. Well, I don't care." But it turns out, she was standing behind him, and she said, "You should care." That statement stuck with Adam. He goes on a rant about how much it angered him.
Looking at that statement, "you should care," and that really is a representation of what childhood is. It's children saying, "I don't care, I don't want your values, I don't want to live," and adults constantly saying, "You should care about values, you should choose culture, you should choose life."
This is a really disturbing revelation about Adam's worldview. He believes that children naturally rebel against cultural values, but adults force them to accept them. He thinks that children want to die, so they can never experience being coerced into culture. In Adam's mind, if a teacher says, "You shouldn't pick your nose and eat your boogers," the teacher is enforcing cultural values onto that child, which is a form of bullying. To Adam, the child would be better off dead, so they don't have to experience this. He also mentions how children who are bullied like this grow up to bully their own children when they grow up. To him, it's an endless cycle of bullying, with the only escape being death. He then segues into speaking about his thoughts on pedophilia, saying that while he's not one himself, and he doesn't support it, with it merely being an academic interest, he feels as if society is too harsh on pedophiles. He compares it to homosexuality, saying,
"Any discrimination which homosexuals face is infinitely more insignificant when compared to the discrimination which pedophiles are face against."
He goes on to speak about his 20,000-word essay on how unfairly pedophiles are treated, and says,
"The reason why pedophilia is opposed is because it combines an atavistic cultural opposition to sex with the undermining of the authority of adults who relegate children to the property of status."
He goes on about how children aren't harmed by pedophilia. The essay he referred to was his college application essay. He wrote a 35-page essay defending pedophilia for his college application. Something that should be mentioned in regards to his fixation on pedophilia is that his childhood psychiatrist, who he saw until he was 15, was convicted in 2019 for drugging and raping a female patient in 2011. Adam, when writing about his experience with the doctors, would say, "Honestly, doctors touching my penis when I was a child was worse than it would be if I consented to an adult in a loving relationship with them. I don't see how I, and every child, was not raped by doctors. We did not consent to it. We only did it because our parents made us. Although it seems like Adam is describing a normal physical exam done by doctors, and not any kind of molestation, he had sensory processing disorder, which is a disorder wherein the brain struggles to process sensory input. This could lead to extreme overreactions to touch. And even though the examinations done on him were for his own health, it is possible they may have inflicted some kind of trauma onto Adam, as he seems to be hurt by it years later. However, maybe Adam had been sexually assaulted by his doctor, and the adults in his life simply thought he was overreacting because of his disorder. It's impossible to know for sure, and it's only possible to theorize. After his rant on pedophilia is finished, he proceeds to rant about people who have been abused or experienced trauma as children, who then grow up to have children of their own, with plans to provide them a better childhood than they experienced.
You don't do your children a favor by raising them in any way. All that you're doing is imposing values onto them, and they're going to have to do the same thing to their children to fix their baggage and all of that nonsense. And you think that you're progressing towards something, and I'm not saying that you're not progressing, that you're somehow deviating from some progression, or that you're going in circles. I'm not saying that at all. You're not going in circles, you're not progressing, you're not doing anything. There's no movement at all. You're stuck in the 0th dimension, and I'm stuck in the 0th dimension with no movement at all, because that's the structure of life.
He ends the video by saying suicide is something that should be celebrated, and there's no good argument for why it's inherently a bad thing.
Why should it be celebrated when a child is born? I think that you should say, I'm so sorry for your loss whenever you hear that someone's pregnant. And it's the same thing with suicide. I used to feel sorry for people who committed suicide, but I think they have the right idea. Now I commend them. I think people should throw celebrations when someone commits suicide, because they're able to escape this value trap. And I wish I were that determined, but I'm still psychologically stuck in all of this. I probably won't be pursuing that anytime soon. But I've never heard a single good argument against suicide.
I find him saying he wishes he was determined enough to commit suicide very interesting. He wants to die, but he can't find the willpower to do it himself. It makes me wonder if the shooting was a way to force himself into suicide. 2 videos into his channel, and it's already painting a clear motivation for his massacre. The next video he made is a sequel to his last one. He begins the video by saying he used to be interested in anarchist philosophy, but once he realized he was only interested because he felt hurt by authority, he stopped being an anarchist.
The only reason why I was ever interested in anarchist philosophy is because I felt, because of the experiences I had in my life, I felt as if I were hurt by the concept of authority. And if I had never been exposed to that concept, I would have never pursued any of this anarchist philosophy.
He then talks about how people are only interested in politics because of psychological baggage, and how politics doesn't actually progress anything. He mentions how rights objectively don't exist. It's just people pushing their own subjective beliefs onto others. He uses an example of people who are against bestiality yet eat meat.
So basically, when they saw someone having sex with an animal, they thought, ew, I don't like that. I should create a right by which an animal can be free from that, so I can be free from that. And then they say, oh, bacon is tasty, so therefore we should create property rights over animals. And no, animals don't have a right to live because XYZ. And you try to refute those assertions, but it's not those assertions on which their argument is based. It's just based on the fulfillment of their subjective values, and that's really all that rights are.
He then states that rights are determined by people who use violence to force their definition of what is a right onto others, and that morality, objectively, doesn't exist. The rest of the video is an unorganized rant about a variety of subjects. He says that racial segregation, integration, and language are all stupid, pointless, and just serve to propagate culture. He calls himself a quasi-anarcho-primitivist. An anarcho-primitivist is a person who wants to get rid of civilization and return to a hunter-gatherer society. The most famous anarcho-primitivist is probably Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber. Adam Lanza was greatly influenced by Ted Kaczynski and his beliefs. Adam then talks about the Ephilism ideology and says he supports it, even though he disagrees with a lot of aspects in it. Ephilism is an extreme antinatalist movement which believes that life is suffering and that all life should be made forcibly extinct. It was created by a guy named Gary Mosher, and the ideology has been linked to a terrorist bombing of a fertility clinic in May of 2025. Ephilism is lifeism backwards, because, it's against life. He ends the video by addressing people he calls pedophobic individuals, challenging them to come up with a unique argument on why pedophilia is bad in the comment section. The last sentence is him mocking people who think he's a pedophile, insinuating he might actually be one.
That guy's such a liar. Just listen to his voice, listening to his intonation. He's obviously a pedophile. And who knows? Maybe I am.
The next video, uploaded September 15, 2011, is entitled Antinatalism at Light Speed. This video is the shortest one. It's only 3 sentences long. It serves as a response to a certain argument.
Goodness is the fulfillment of value. Value exists only in life. If there is no life, there is no value, and thus goodness becomes an entirely irrelevant concept.
The description mentions Eulovism, which is what Adam called his philosophy. It's value, spelt backwards, since he's opposed to all values. The next video is entitled Cults and Culture, uploaded the 16th of September, 2011. The video begins with Adam talking about the characteristics of a cult, and how they use psychologically manipulative tactics against the members to suppress dissent and keep everyone in line. He says these actions are generally regarded as being immoral by everyone.
You ask, if their beliefs had any validity, then why do they have to resort to these underhanded tactics of manipulation? Why are cults like this?
Adam argues that the beliefs cults hold aren't inherently invalid because of the immoral actions they do. He compares cults to terrorists, saying that cults and terrorists have to commit immoral actions only because they lack the power governments do. If cults and terrorists had the same amount of power the state has, then they wouldn't need to commit murders and other acts of violence. They would be able to enforce their values onto the population peacefully, like through the education system, like legitimate governments.
Governments have taxes and central banks. Terrorists need to resort to burglary, counterfeiting, and money laundering. I'm not trying to normatively justify terrorism. I'm just describing the difference in the operation of the two groups. If someone shares the values which the dominant government promotes, then they are not neutral when they observe the activities of terrorists, and dismiss the validity of their ideology because the terrorists resort to tactics that the government would never use. Governments already being dominant merely have no need to resort to the tactics of terrorists, because they are viewed with legitimacy and thus have their own more efficient tactics.
The rest of the video consists of him comparing the way children are treated in society to the way cults operate. He says the governments across the world have turned children into property by giving their parents legal rights over them, basically saying parents are slaveholders and children they're slaves.
Parents' rights is a euphemism for slaveholders' rights.
Kids are taught by their parents to behave in culturally sanctioned ways, and if the children deviate from the values of the parents, they are corrected or punished. To Adam, this is tantamount to emotional manipulation. He says that once children are old enough, they become infected with language and are able to contribute to and propagate culture.
Once the child is old enough, it becomes infected with language. It is primarily through this mechanism that cultural values are transmitted. This is euphemistically referred to as teaching. As they grow older, children are progressively given more and more freedom, to the extent that they will contribute more and more to the propagation of the dominant cultural values.
It's really unsettling hearing Adam call children infected. It reminds me of a short story he made, where there's a baby zombie apocalypse and he has to kill them. He specifically says he kills them with a Sega 12 shotgun, which was the shotgun found in the trunk of his car during the shooting. Adam goes on to say that even if a parent tries to treat their child like an equal and gives them autonomy to be whatever they want, they're still a part of the problem. Even if the parent, as an example, doesn't force their kid to be the same religion as them, they would still enforce cultural values onto them. An example of this that Adam uses is parents forcing their children to wear clothes. He says it's impossible to have children without enforcing cultural values onto them.
You're not doing your children a favor by bringing them into existence. Children exist solely for the propagation of the values of the adults who own them. Your culture has taught you language, art, religion, rights, morality, your activities, cultural context for interactions, the economic structure in which you live, innumerable compartmentalized metaphysical categories of everything imaginable, and you think that you are somehow a neutral observer when you dismiss a cult for employing manipulative tactics. Cults behave in that way because they are trying to subvert the dominant culture and to propagate their own cultural values. Dominant cultures do not have to resort to cultish tactics, because since they have the luxury of being viewed with legitimacy, they have a monopoly on the most efficient mechanism of cultural infection, the raising of children. Yes, the belief systems of all cults are completely delusional, but it has nothing to do with their manipulative tactics. All cultural values are delusions which exist entirely as a consequence of coercive impositions.
The next video is entitled Something See Response, uploaded the 20th of September, 2011. The video is split into two parts. It's mainly Adam answering questions from YouTube user Something See, who made a video response to Adam's antinatalism video. That response video is now lost, but in it, he asked Adam various questions about his beliefs. It's very interesting to me that somebody unknowingly had such discussions with Adam. I wish we were able to ask Something See about his experience, but sadly, he's not a good person himself. His real name is Sean Windingland. He received a 36-year prison sentence for molesting two 6-year-old relatives in 2019. I'm going to be playing certain answers I thought were interesting in full, as I don't feel like I could properly explain what he's saying. I will be heavily editing his responses though, just to make it flow better. Something See asked the question, "You've always had an immense hatred for culture. Why?" Adam's response is as follows.
I basically perceive culture the way that a normal person would perceive rape, and all of these abstractions are the incurable STDs in my mind. I've always reacted with terror to culture. Whenever I've always had a problem with authority figures, and I would call authority a source which tries to impose values onto you. And so whenever I would interact with someone in an authoritative position, I would always be eager to punish myself and hit myself and say how much I deserved to be tortured and that kind of thing. And I think the reason why I used to do that, even though I didn't understand it at the time, I think that it was because I wanted to try to mitigate their, quote, discipline of me. Even if it was a situation in which they wouldn't even be doing that. It's just interacting with an authority figure would upset me greatly. So I did that so that they would say, "Wow, this kid is fucked up, I'd better not mess him up anymore." And subordination disgusts me. One of the most grating things I can hear is, "My parents raised me to believe that," or "My parents always told me that." I had to cut back to this because I'm trying to think of how I can express this. You hear things like, "I don't need to spank my children because there are other methods of discipline available." And I used to think that it could be possible to have children and not discipline them, because I perceived values as potentially having some degree of validity, and I would think, why do you need to coerce a child into behaving in certain ways when you can use reason? But you can't use reason because culture, there is no reason involved. Cultural values are not reasonable. The only way that culture can spread is through coercion. And so that's why parents, even egalitarian ones, focus on the word discipline, because there's no other way to go about spreading these lies, because children will instantly reject them. A child can see that all of this is nonsense, and that's why they go through this terrible 2 stage. When they're toddlers, they're incessantly miserable, and offspring don't naturally rebel against their parents like that. You don't see chimpanzee toddlers freaking out about they have scuffles, but they don't have this rebellion against their parents. And the reason why this rebellion exists in humans is because this cultural infection is being involved. They're trying to rebel against this indoctrination process, but of course they always end up succumbing to it in the end, and no longer see how delusional it is. And even still, I don't entirely see how delusional I am, because I still have this notion that even though I nominally recognize that it's false, I still operate under this belief that it's possible for different values to be more valid than other values. And thinking about this response video caused me to remember that a while ago I saw a documentary about bonobo chimps being taught language. Basically, they're being indoctrinated into accepting culture. And I've seen some immensely gory shockumentaries, but they were Barney compared to the horror that was in this documentary, and in all of the videos you can find on YouTube about apes being taught things. I'll link to the specific video I'm talking about, but the entire thing was horrible. But I remember two particular scenes. There was one where this bonobo chimp was excited and it hopped onto a dog, and one of the prison guards was bullying it, saying bad, 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 bad continuously. It was like a nightmare, and you could just tell that the chimp wasn't recognizing that what it did was wrong. It was being instilled with this belief that it was bad. And it's one of... There was this other scene where it might have been the same chimp, but I'm not sure. This bonobo chimp was the prison guards were trying to teach this chimp language, and the chimp, they spend their entire lives in this prison complex, and these aliens are trying to coerce these stupid things onto them, and they have no idea what's going on, but all that they know is that they're being forced into doing things. And this chimp snapped, and because of all of the circumstances of its life, and it started attacking one of the prison guards. It kicked her, I think, and she proceeded to chase it around, shouting at it, bullying it, trying to intimidate it, and the poor chimp was terrified. And if you want to understand why I hate culture, just watch these videos. Those two scenes were among the most horrible things I've seen in my life, because it embodies what I went through, and it embodies what every single other human goes through who's exposed to culture. And it's the saddest thing imaginable. Just watch these YouTube videos about apes being indoctrinated, and you can just see the sorrow. And that sorrow is culture. There's nothing more to it. It's horrible.
Overexcitement can cause bad behavior, such as jumping on the dog.
Oh, Tanzania!
Pan Benicia knows she's being scolded. Is this the face of bonobo contrition? The producers asked Sue to put sentences to Tamuli to see if Kanzi would explain them to her. But Tamuli, who does not understand language, became frustrated. She began kicking Sue. Pound for pound, apes are 5 times as strong as humans. Even Tamuli is stronger than Sue, let alone Kanzi. With Sue trying to convey that she had misbehaved, Tamuli sought Kanzi's help. To his credit, Kanzi tried to arbitrate, keeping them apart. Tamuli is still unrepentant, and Sue?
I'm not gonna have it!
Kanzi stepped between them, mediating with his bulk. But the storm was almost spent. Tamuli sat down and offered an apology. Sue, badly bruised, was mollified. Peace was restored.
This is very reminiscent of Adam's call into that Anarchy radio show. In that call, he referenced Travis the chimp, who severely mauled and disfigured a woman after being raised as a human for his entire life. Adam seems to have an obsession with chimps, who were raised as humans, believing them to be the perfect example of how harmful culture is. Something C's next question is asking Adam why he identifies as an antinatalist, despite that label not being fully accurate to his beliefs. Adam's response is as follows.
I agree that antinatalism is an inaccurate term to be using to describe my position. The reason why I use that is because it's the kind of terminology that other people on YouTube are using for similar positions, and despite that, I actually do agree with antinatalism. I would like it if life stopped propagating, but I think my position can be more accurately stated as anti-valuism or something like that.
What do you mean by you lack the discipline to commit suicide? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm definitely not happy to be alive. I would like to die, but the reason why, when I get the thought into my head, you're going to kill yourself in 1 minute, I'm compelled to live in the same sense that someone who is addicted to cocaine is compelled to continue their indulgence. They definitely don't, well, sometimes they definitely don't want to be addicted to cocaine, but they can't control it because they don't have enough self-discipline. And that's the problem that I have. A cocaine addict will say, oh, this is the last time. I'm definitely not going to do it again once I take it this last time. But if it were truly the last time, then they wouldn't need to have that last indulgence. So they're not really overcoming their addiction. They're just continuing to feed it just as much as they were previously. And I'm in the same position. I think, oh, this period of time will be good, and then I'll die. And it ends up not being the last period, because if it really were the last period, I would just kill myself instantly, instead of having to continue to live through that. I can think of 2 ways that you can choose to overcome an addiction. The first is that you can have the self-discipline to recognize that you need to overcome your addiction, and you'll know that you'll have an intense desire to persist in your addiction, but if you continue to persist in overcoming it, that desire will eventually disappear. And I don't have that discipline. There's one other way you can choose to overcome an addiction, and that is to allow your addiction to get you into circumstances such that continuing the addiction would have much more intolerable consequences than ending the addiction would have, such as a cocaine addict ending up living in a dumpster, blowing strangers for cocaine money, that kind of a thing, and they would feel forced into giving up their addiction. And I think that's the position that I need to be in to overcome this, because my life right now is, I hate using this word because it's misleading, but my life right now is way too comfortable for me to feel forced into killing myself. But that's probably going to be the way I die. I'm going to either that or I'll develop the discipline to just say, none of this is helping me, I just need to die, and I know that I won't want to go through with it at the last second, but I just need to do it. And I guess that's the end of the response video. I'm sorry to end on such a macabre note. I know that I can kind of rain on the parade, but, well, you wanted a response video, so here it is. Thanks for listening.
Adam saying he felt as if his life was too comfortable for him to kill himself makes me think, did he do what he did to force himself into suicide? The next video is entitled Pointless Cultural Philistine, the movie, uploaded the 28th of September, 2011. This video is split into 6 parts. It begins with Adam mentioning how in his previous videos, he always had a basic idea of what he wanted to talk about, but while laying on the ground, he decided for his next video, he would make it off the cuff. He then transitions into talking about how he hasn't hugged anyone since his grandma 4 years ago, and even then, it wasn't voluntarily.
Never voluntarily hugged anyone. I wish I could. I wish I could cuddle with someone I love. But I recognize that that's no different than anything else I've talked about pertaining to desire. I don't know why I don't just do it. Why am I expecting to accomplish anything before I do it?
I think a reason why Adam is so against hugging, despite wanting to hug someone, is because of his sensory issues I mentioned previously. He could like the idea of hugging someone, but actually experiencing physical touch like that would be deeply uncomfortable for him. This sounds horrible to me, wanting to experience physical touch, but you can't, because of a disorder that makes it unbearable to experience. Adam goes on to say it's impossible to accomplish anything in life. You just impose deprivation upon yourself and try to resolve it. He says he barely has any possessions, and that wanting to achieve non-material goals is the same as materialism. I'll provide an example. To Adam, having the goal of getting a fancy car would be just as dumb as having the goal of starting a family. He talks about how he thinks about recording his suicide, saying people would enjoy that, but he quickly dismisses the idea, saying that if he did that, he would still be accomplishing something. It seems like his idea of a perfect suicide would be something low-key that doesn't draw any attention. But what he ended up doing seems to totally contradict this belief. Millions of people around the world know about his suicide. He talks about how he's staring at the floor and mentions how he hates doctors. He then calls school cultural indoctrination before saying the only times he feels pleasure is in his dreams. But he goes on to say he doesn't like dreaming because his dreams stem from culture. If he was a feral man, he wouldn't be dreaming about the same things. He mentions how he has to boost the audio in his videos a lot because of how quietly he speaks. He then wonders why it's always the quiet ones that kill themselves. He says he wants to die, but everyone is forcing him to live. He originally thought that quiet people killed themselves because they were being left out of social interaction. But now, he realizes they do it because quiet people have less deprivation, which leads to them desiring to live less. He talks about how suffering is life-affirming. While poor people have children, rich people are killing themselves. While talking about this, he realizes that if a psychiatrist were listening to what he was saying, he'd be committed to a mental hospital for the rest of his life. He says that suicide is de facto illegal, and people don't actually want to help those who are suicidal. They just want to coerce suicidal people into having the same values they do. He then imagines a world wherein suicide isn't such a taboo topic to talk about, saying he thinks it would lead to more people committing suicide. He then shifts the topic onto women. He says he's attracted to girls that want to kill themselves, or are exactly like him. He then says if the girl of his dreams were real and alive, he wouldn't want to meet her anyway. He then mentions how for a time, he thought he was asexual, because of 2 reasons. 1, him weighing under 100 pounds, which killed his libido, and 2, because he wanted to reject the cultural notion of what is considered beauty. He then wonders what would happen if a future girlfriend wanted kids, before saying that no girl would ever want to have children with him.
Imagine what would I think if I found the girl of my dreams and she wanted to have children with me. Well, she wouldn't want to have children with me, but I mean, overlooking that. Where was I even going with this?
Adam says that females piss him off, but says he wouldn't pull a George Sedini, who was a mass shooter that targeted women in his attack. Outside of his YouTube channel, Adam wrote an essay entitled Selfish that was about how all women are inherently selfish. He briefly considers killing himself right then, in the middle of recording, but decides against it.
No, maybe I will. No, I won't. I say, maybe I will kill myself tonight, but no, I'm not going to do it. I already know I'm not going to do it.
He then mentions how he wrote his college application essay defending pedophilia to say, "Fuck you, I know the truth and you don't," to the university. He knew the essay would get him rejected, but he didn't care. He thought it was funny. He then goes on a rant about people calling him a pedophile, saying he's called one only because he finds young teenage girls attractive, and his ideal girlfriend has the physical appearance of a 12-year-old boy. He says,
"They're post-pubescent, so by definition I can't be a pedophile."
He laments the fact he can't find anyone exactly like him to talk to.
I just wish I could find that someone exactly like me.
After this, most of the rest of the video is him taking online mental illness personality quizzes, reading off and answering each question. Throughout, he frequently brings up his Asperger's diagnosis, saying,
Asperger's. I hate the Asperger's label because people would apply it to me. I'm not autistic. Well, Asperger's doesn't. It's a nonsensical category. Anyway, moving on.
And when one of the questions was, when I know what someone is going to say, I finish the sentence for him or her, his response was,
Well, I mean, if you know what they're going to say, then you eventually do finish the sentence. Of course, they're going to say, you're exhibiting Asperger qualities by being excessively pedantic. I'm going to have to prescribe this certain amount of this certain medication to cure your affliction so that you can become more like me. Wouldn't you like that, son?
Adam was diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 13. However, he denied his diagnosis his entire life. He was resistant to any medication or therapy, and his mother, Nancy, accommodated every request. Nancy is even recorded as saying that he's outgrown his autism, but it returned in the 8th grade. Adam often brings up his diagnosis unprompted in his videos. Nancy was too accommodating to Adam, doing everything he asked her to, letting him stay inside his room almost 24/7, covering the windows with blankets so he couldn't see the outside light, leaving food outside his door since she wasn't allowed inside his room. I think this shows just how babied Adam was by his mother. One of the most alarming records in the report, in my mind, is this email from Nancy to school administrators, in which she indirectly admits that she meticulously creates an elusive reality for Adam to convince him that he is a functioning and normal high school student, while at the same time admitting this is far from the truth. He will not accept any preferential treatment at all, since he obviously needs preferential treatment. It leaves me scurrying around behind his back, fixing things, i.e. the gym thing. I actually had to make up a story about liability, bureaucracy, and being out of school for over 12 months, etc. Then I have to go to school staff and get her to back that up. Then I have to go to another school staff and get him to go along. Then his teacher slips up and tells him that his IEP allows him to get out of study halls, and I have to get her to recant and say it was a misunderstanding on her part. This is a high-stress, 24/7 operation of misinformation. He does not have to go to lunch, but obviously I have to come up with a story that he will buy and get everyone on the same page. Thank you for giving me the heads up about lunch. I will get on it first thing in the morning. I will think of something. He wants to believe that he is an ordinary student, and I think it is very important to let him believe, for his self-esteem. Instead of letting Adam know he was abnormal and trying to make the most of it, she told him he was regular for his entire life. Once he became an adult, she wasn't able to keep up with the facade. Back to the video. It is kind of funny watching Adam take these quizzes. He often struggles to understand the questions and has to read it multiple times. Or he gets angry and ends the quiz early.
9. When I talk to someone, I put myself in his or her shoes. Well, I don't even want to answer that one. 10. I don't want to finish this test. Random answers. What did it say about me? 53. My communication skills are average. Fuck you!
In an email from Adam Lanza's psychiatrist to his school, he speaks on Adam's trouble with education. He avoids peer interaction and is very anxious around strangers. He lacks empathy and tends to employ a very rigid, systematic thought process. He demonstrates intense emotional rage when his systematic world is threatened due to his extreme need for routine. He tends to take a very literal interpretation of written and verbal material. Concepts like metaphors, symbolism, and intangible references are exceedingly difficult for him and can cause significant distress. He tends to have an overly precise quality of speech and tends to not comprehend emotional expression in others. He is phobic of physical contact, even with his own mother, who has been his most constant and consistent individual in his life. Due to his extreme anxiety and emotional discord due to minor changes in routines and/or his expectations, he is unable to attend school. Back to the video. After Adam's initial anger at the quizzes, it's hard to tell whether he's earnestly answering the questions or not. He starts taking the quizzes as different characters, sarcastically saying he has split personalities. For example, he takes one quiz as a raging conservative. Because of this, there's not really anything to learn about him in this part, since you can't tell when he's answering seriously or joking. Adam gets bored of taking quizzes, so he begins surfing the internet, seeing if anyone has been interacting with his videos. He gets happy, seeing his most recent video managed to get a single like.
Or maybe I liked it without realizing it. That's how much of a tool I am.
He then abruptly goes silent for a few seconds before speaking again in a serious tone.
You know what, this is really fucking stupid. All of this. I mean, really, when you analyze what I'm doing at this moment and what I've been doing for the last hour, I'm basically just procrastinating because I know that the solution is death.
His recording software only lets him record for 15 minutes, and it's about to end, so he quickly says that asexuality isn't real and is delusional, before saying goodbye. He begins recording again, saying he's in a positive mood, which is a rare thing for him. He's been listening back to the audio he recorded, which made him feel as if he's interacting with someone exactly like him. This really shows how socially isolated Adam is. He's listening back to his own voice for social interaction. He then talks a bit about how he feels. He says despite being in a positive mood, he still wants to die.
There's not really a difference in my actions based on whether I'm in my worst or best mood. I still persist in just going through the motions, and I never pursue death, and I never pursue life. I'm just kind of in an intermediate stage. But I am in a good mood, so don't let anyone tell you that I want to die because life is so miserable, because that's not my position. I've said this so many times. Life is a great thing, and that's the problem. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, then everything that if you've listened to everything I said earlier, then I'm not going to be able to communicate right now. Maybe in the future I'll be able to express that more coherently, but I guess that's it.
After saying that, he ends the video. The next video is entitled Something See Response Number 2, A Difference of Perspectives, uploaded the 28th of September, 2011. This video consists of Adam responding to Something See again. I lack the context of what Adam is replying to, so I'm not really sure what he's talking about.
Culture imposes a deprivation and causes its victims to seek the fulfillment of it. Culture operates in the same way that all of awareness does. Awareness does not allow the discovery of experiences, it allows the creation of it. I see awareness allowing a higher vibration in the sense that you cut yourself deeper and thus scream louder.
I don't really understand what this means, so I'm going to be skipping this video. The next video is entitled Strange Dream Number 1, Beyond Dream's Door is Where Horror Lies, uploaded the 28th of September, 2011. In this video, Adam recounts a strange dream he had 10 minutes prior to recording. The dream starts with Adam in high school. After he tells a teacher to fuck off, he's imprisoned. After a bit of time in prison, 2 guards let him out and lead him to the gymnasium. There's a tricycle in the middle, with a crowd surrounding it. A group of prisoners, including Adam, will be forced to do tricks on the tricycle, and whoever entertains the crowd the most will be freed. Adam gets on the tricycle first, and instead of riding it, he bounces it 20 feet in the air and does 360-degree spin tricks on it. The crowd erupts into cheers. When it's the turn of the next prisoners, they don't even ride the tricycle. Instead, they pass a balloon back and forth. Adam thinks to himself that he's gonna win before waking up. The next video is entitled Suffering is Life Affirming. Life is Suffering, uploaded September 28, 2011. This video consists of Adam elaborating on why he believes life is suffering and how the desire to live stems from culture. He begins by saying,
Relatively speaking, and within the context of being alive, I have always been in a very privileged position. At this point in my life, I can pursue and achieve practically anything I would desire. If I were to commit suicide, I'm certain that many people would say, I can't believe that lazy, spoiled loser killed himself. I've always been poor, my parents beat me, I was bullied every day as a child, and I got raped. But despite all of that, I still choose to live.
He brings up an example of feral children. They have no interests, goals, or desires. They don't care if they die. But if the feral child isn't cultured If they're able to have goals and interests, then they are constantly deprived from pleasure if they're not achieving their goals or doing their interests. And if they do achieve their goals or participate in their interests, they only get pleasure because they were deprived of it in the first place. It's like a drug that makes them live longer.
You can't kill yourself because there are things that need to be accomplished in life. But you do not live for the achievement of your goals. You have goals so that you will continue to live and thus will continue to propagate life.
It's kind of hard to explain his logic, so I'll provide an example. If you have the goal to have children, you will live long enough to have children and to raise your children. But Adam argues, you're not doing this to be happy. You're doing it to prevent you from killing yourself. He uses the Unabomber as an example of somebody who was able to become feral, and as soon as he did, he became okay with dying at any time. Adam ends the video by saying,
Life is suffering, and suicide is the solution.
The next video is entitled A Few Things, uploaded the 14th of October, 2011. There's not too much to say about this video. It's Adam responding to YouTube anti-natalist, but I was unable to find out who he's responding to. But I found this quote from him interesting.
That's what culture is. When you rape me, what do you expect me to be other than to be fucked up?
The next video is entitled On Pedophiles and Children, uploaded the 14th of October, 2011. This video has 8 parts, and combined, it's almost 2 hours of Adam defending pedophilia. That makes up a third of all audio content we have from him. It's really disturbing, and I'm not going to be going too in-depth into it. Throughout his entire channel, he repeatedly states that he's not a pedophile, and his interest in it is purely academic. Large portions of the video is Adam reading his college application essay. He repeats over and over again that children can consent, and provides examples of children that enjoyed, It's really creepy, and I don't want to summarize 2 hours of this. I don't think it's necessary. At the beginning of the video, he introduces himself as Philip Greaves Jr., who was a man who wrote a guide on how to be a pedophile. I'll give you an idea of how creepy this video is by playing these sections.
Because once you include toddlers, which... I'll get into that. But there really isn't much of a difference between a toddler and a 70-year-old when it comes to this topic. There was this lonely 13-year-old boy, and that I knew online, and I asked him, he never said much of anything, and I asked him what he thought about something once, and we got to talking about various things each night, and at one point he degraded something he said because he was just a kid and that kind of thing, and I replied that age meant nothing to me, and another time he asked me about what I thought about homosexuals, and I said that someone's sexuality doesn't mean anything to me either, and he thought it was amusing that I appeared to not judging anything about anyone. And soon after, he confided in me that he was bisexual and that I was the only person he had told. He began talking to me about his sexuality and all sorts of personal things, like his anxiety over being in a family of Jehovah's Witnesses, of being in an abnormally homophobic school, and of his attraction to his male best friend. I had never tried talking to him about his sexuality to him. He brought up the subject solely by himself because for the first time in his life, someone was actually willing to listen to him as a person instead of under the label of a child. He appreciated that very much and even joked about wanting me to be his father. All of it made me wonder how many lonely children there are out there who are dismissed as being unimportant because of their age. While there was nothing pedophilic about any of this, it illustrates how a pedophilic relationship could begin.
The next video is entitled Strange Dream Number 2. Which side of the door again? Uploaded the 14th of October, 2011. This is another video of Adam recounting a dream he's had. It starts with his high school holding an assembly of how much of a horrible person he is. The next day, he goes to school, and the principal sends him to the office. The principal calls him Smiggles instead of Adam. Smiggles was his most commonly used internet alias, and the majority of his friends were online, so he was probably called Smiggles, more so than he was called by his actual name. I just found that interesting. When Adam arrives at the principal's office, he asks for his withdrawal papers, and the principal refuses. Adam then kicks him, takes the papers, and runs out of the office. He starts running to the exit of the school, where there's a teacher opening and closing the door, mocking Adam. Adam manages to run through the door and escape. If Adam was bullied or not is a debated topic. According to a family friend, he used to come home from school with mysterious bruises and refused to talk about them. His mother assumed they were from other students bullying him. However, as a child, Adam had a habit of hitting himself. Adam's mother also said this to one of his teachers. She informed one of Adam Lance's teachers that he worried about dying being bullied and that he was acutely aware that he was different from other kids. She feared that any story that referenced these social issues in a way that Adam could identify with would bring on periods of insomnia and a loss of appetite. He ends the video by saying,
"In my dreams, I have nightmares about things like my parents or school or the police or government or really anything like that. Anywhere where I'm a child and there are adults around."
Adam had an intense hatred towards school. He'd often cry while doing homework. While he was taking classes at community college, he'd come home, lock himself in the bathroom, and cry hysterically for hours. Eventually, he began lying to his mother about attending classes, when, in reality, he was at the library. The next video is entitled Done with YouTube, uploaded the 21st of October, 2011. Adam begins by saying that he's already said everything he's wanted to say, and he's grown bored of watching and making YouTube videos. He says he hates how bright it gets when it snows, so he's not excited for winter. He's going to stay inside and watch videos of Coco the gorilla. He'll only make a new video when he has another strange dream. But he does express interest in a video about Mitchell Heisman's suicide note, which he'll never end up making. The next video is entitled Strange Dream Number 3, Door, uploaded the 22nd of October, 2011. This dream, like all his others, takes place in a school. He's in the library, photocopying his homework, when he accidentally grabs another student's homework. A teacher comes up to him and yells at him, saying he's a horrible person. Adam replies that he's dropping out of school and begins to leave, when the teacher pins him against the wall and starts hitting him in the face. After the 8th punch, Adam hits her back. She screams and the entire library looks at him. Adam yells that she hit him first, and that adults are the ones who bully children. He then leaves the school and wakes up. I find it very interesting that every dream he's had was a nightmare involving being bullied by teachers at school. After this video, Adam would not upload for a few months, until January 29th, 2012. He uploaded his last video, entitled To the Pro-Culturalists. Adam is speaking even quieter than usual. He sounds as if he's on the verge of tears.
I'm really upset right now. I have been for hours. Earlier, I probably experienced the most rage of my lifetime. Now I'm just completely enervated and depressed. And I guess I should explain this.
He goes on to say that someone had discovered his YouTube channel and left hate comments on all his videos. That person even went as far as to make forum posts asking people to mass report Adam's videos, leading to more people rating his videos and leaving hate comments. The person that did this will remain anonymous, but here are some comments he left. After Adam posted his last video, he felt very regretful for the comments he made, thinking he might have made Adam hurt himself. He said he was shaking from anxiety with guilt. He'd go on to comment on Adam's videos every few years, asking if he was okay. The most recent comment was posted in his discussion tab around 2020. He says the only reason he hasn't killed himself is because of the emotional torment he's faced.
I'm imposing deprivations onto myself so that I'll live, because if it weren't for the rage and sorrow that I've experienced as a consequence of my acculturation, I would have killed myself long ago.
His anger and sadness make him want to live. He goes on about how much the comments hurt him.
This is really bothering me. I can't just forget about it. How can I forget about it when I've been infected with language? And he'll just say, "Oh, boo-hoo, get over it, you fucking emo loser. You should kill yourself." He doesn't address the arguments. Culture doesn't address the arguments. Culture is rape.
The rest of the video is him responding to hate comments. He's saddened by how many dislikes his videos got. In total, he's received 2 likes and 46 dislikes. He's upset his best video got 0 likes and only dislikes. Listening to Adam respond to these comments is disturbing. He gets angry enough he starts shouting. He sounds as if he's gonna burst into tears and his voice is cracking.
No one consents to being born. They have no choice with their enculturation. I mean, how can you look at a photograph of a city and not... That's civilization. That's what it does. And when I hear culture, all I think is that of that video with Coco. That's... Oh my god. This is so crazy. How does culture propagate, if not by the imposition of delusions onto children who have absolutely no say in the matter? It's not this person right now who's bothering me, it's an amalgam of people I've seen on the internet who say that I'm the authoritarian for opposing the imposition of life. You're the one who sees children as your property.
After reading a comment that said, if you have to make an 8-part 2-hour defense of why you're not a pedophile, you're probably a pedophile, he gets into a rage, going on a lengthy rant about how children should be killed. I'll play a condensed version of it.
You don't care about children, I do care about children. You're the one who wants to rape children, I'm the one who wants to save them from a life of suffering that you want to impose onto them. You're the one who sees them as your property, I'm the one who wants to free them. If you really cared about children, why are you advocating civilization? Civilization is the systematic raping, mind-fucking of children's minds. But you don't care about children. You don't care about that because you want to propagate your own values onto them. You're angry at me because I want to free children from you. Because I don't want to allow you to have children be your property. And I don't understand why I'm so alone on this. I feel like I'm the only non-pedophile in the entire world who can see that this hysteria about childhood sexuality isn't about protecting children, it's about protecting their status as property. I would expect non-misandrist feminists and anarchists to be on my side, but they never are. I'm the only one who can see this hysteria, and it's... Oh my god. I don't want to see children as adults because I don't want anyone to be adults because I don't want there to be a system in which they're... Oh my god, just look at hunter-gatherer societies. They don't have this child abuse, which you're advocating. This really upsets me. If you care so much about the damage of children, then why are you advocating that they live? And why are you advocating their enculturation? Culture is the harm. Look at all of these problems. They wouldn't exist if it weren't for culture.
His last recorded words come at the end of the video.
What can I even say to you people? There's nothing to say to you. Fucking 7 hours, 8 hours, I don't know. I could explain this for 1,000 hours and you'd still be advocating the indoctrination of children. And I'm so upset about this because that's all that I see you as doing. The way that you interpret pedophiles raping children is the way that I interpret the way that you advocate this system. What else can I say about this? There's nothing to say. This is hopeless.
320 days later, he will kill 27 people. I hope this video gave you an idea of Adam's beliefs. It really seems as if he was so delusional, he genuinely believed he was helping the children he murdered. I'm going to leave you with this email exchange between a 16-year-old Adam and his mother, Nancy. You do not seem to understand that I was attempting to comfort you with what I consider to be a maxim with which to live. You unfortunately probably still do not understand what I mean. As a disclaimer, I type nothing in this that is a tone that is condescending, vindictive, malicious, snide, malignant, or any synonym that you can think of. I mean well. If you believe that you wasted your life, as you seem to have insinuated, you will gain nothing from regretting it and will only depress yourself. You cannot change anything from the past. There is something I can assure you that will always be true. It does not matter if you live for the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, or even 100 years. The day before you die, you will regret ever worrying about your life instead of thinking of what you want to do. Every new year that you do live, you will regret not having started anything that you wanted to do the year prior, only regretting the past more. What I mean is that you should think of what you want to do today, not starting the next year or the next month, but today. Thinking that you are not going to be able to do anything in the future will only ensure that fate. Also, thinking that you are too old is going to ensure the same fate. It is not as though I do not mean that you are homeless and begging. I would spend my life savings to prevent that, out of obligation for what you have done for me. My personality is merely inherently unmoving. I will not be upset over something that you cannot change, and you should not be upset either. What you should do is think about what you want to do. I also want to mention that I purchased something 2 weeks ago on Newegg to double your computer's memory without even saying anything until now. I do not try to avoid doing anything for you, as you seem to think. I'm glad that I was born, and I appreciate your having taken care of me. It is not my fault if you have not detected as much of an increase in speed as I would have liked. However, I blame its outdated processor. I would change that if I could, but it's not possible to do so for your model. Please read the first paragraph again. This email is a response from Nancy. I appreciate your effort to be a comfort to me. I apologize if I seemed angry or antagonistic. I was simply over-emotional, and as is often the case, worrying about the future. I admit that I have been feeling a bit overwhelmed by my circumstances lately, but in no way do I regret having raised 2 wonderful children. I have high hopes for you both, and will consider my life a success if you and Ryan live happy and productive lives. There are 2 things that I do regret. One of my biggest is that I dropped out of college, believing it to be more important to help your father get through college. Financially, it was impossible for us to afford a college education for both of us, and it seemed more important that he receive a diploma. In some ways, I regret leaving the workforce, as it has severely limited my prospects for the future. But again, it was a decision that I made to take more responsibility for the house and the children, and to allow your father to concentrate on his career. I do feel that I was able to be a better mother and have been able to put great effort into raising you and your brother, so that regret is mitigated in that respect. On the occasion that Ryan or you show some appreciation for my efforts, I feel completely justified in that choice and duly rewarded. I know that it is harder for you to show appreciation, and that it does not come as a natural response. I really do not want you to feel obligated in that way. I do not expect any help, financial or otherwise, from you or your brother, and would not accept it if it were offered. I am certain that I will not be homeless or begging on a street corner, as your father is obligated by law and morality to see that my 30 years of service and sacrifice are compensated for. He has assured me that I will live a comfortable life and that my health expenses are covered. He is an honorable man. I am grateful that I was married to someone who honors his responsibilities. He has also taken a responsibility to provide a college education for both you and your brother, so that neither of you will have to struggle and sacrifice as we did. If you choose to, you will emerge from college with a master's degree of your choice, debt-free, to pursue any career in life that you wish. When I think of what I would like to do for the future, I think I would like to get my college degree first. I just thought of that tonight, as a direct result of my conversation with you. I think it would be possible, as I dropped out only a year shy of my degree, and it seems as I might be spending quite a time on campus waiting for you to take classes, so why not take advantage of that? I suppose I could take classes at the same time you are taking classes. I agree with you when you say that I should try to think positively of the future, and what I would want to do today. There is nothing that I can do about my diagnosis, and I do try to be as healthy as I can, despite the prognosis. I am sure that you notice that I exercise regularly and do my best to stay in good shape. It's not like I have the attitude that since I will be crippled anyway, I may as well give up and get fat and sedentary now. I am working hard to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can. At some point, I might like to start a business. I sometimes toy with the idea of an internet business like my friend owns. Her website is this. You should have a look at it sometime and let me know what you think of it. Anyway, I would like you to know that no matter what, I am very proud of the person you are. I have no preconceived notion of how you should react or respond. I know that you tend to be more reserved and less emotional, and I do not perceive that as condescending, malignant, or callous. You are pragmatic and stoical. These are fine attributes. I'm glad to know that you are glad to be born and appreciate being taken care of. I love you very much, and I'm more than happy to take care of you in any way that I can. I suppose I have felt that you didn't even notice how hard I try to make things as tolerable as possible for you, and that has made me feel sad in a way. I am much happier now, knowing that you do not despise me for bringing you into this world. Above all, I want you to be happy, no matter what you choose to do. You may not think I notice, but my computer is working faster, and I have been able to download bank statements faster and search the websites quicker. I was able to get baseball scores for all the games in a split second and watch a video clip that a friend sent without any freezing. I didn't know that you had worked on it, so I thank you for the efforts. You should let me know whenever you do thoughtful things so that you can get credit. As an aside, I'm having a problem that has been ongoing for months. The cursor abruptly moves to a different place in text now and again when I am in the middle of typing a sentence. It is very strange and annoying. Maybe you can have a look at it sometime. Thank you for taking the time to send me this email. I now understand your motive and meaning, and I truly appreciate it.